So the book I'm going to be reading from today is called Awakening, the first book in the completed edited genome trilogy. In this world, genetic edits are common, but they're reserved for society's elites. And so in this scene I'm going to read, Shada Gray has been uploaded into by the CEO of the company that does the genetic edits, Westcorp. Shada thought she saw a faint circle of light far above, as if she was looking up from the bottom of a well. If she tried to focus on the light, it would disappear. But by looking into the blackness ahead, she could make out the outline of where the light existed. By switching her focus between the darkness and the spot where the light should be, Shada was able to bring the circle into focus. Once she could make out its edges, she concentrated on what was illuminated on the other side. The growing circle pushed the darkness away until it filled her entire field of vision. The brightness overwhelmed her, and she craved the darkness. It hurt her desire, and the edges of the circle of light constricted. She reached for a breath in order to calm herself down. When she couldn't find a sensation, she instead counted to 10, some instinctual part of her knowing not to allow the darkness to return. At the end of her count, she saw the world through her own eyes, her body out of her control. Alfie's arm poked in and out of her field of vision, relaxed as he walked. They were headed to a warehouse, walking through the sun past manicured gardens. Shada's head turned and watched Alfie's mouth move before her field of vision bobbed up and down. She knew her head had nodded in agreement to whatever Alfie had said. The doors ahead opened as they approached. Inside were rows of motionless humans laid out on stainless steel tables. Each human was attached to a blood transfusion machine, which Shada recognized from when her mother was on her deathbed. Shada's head turned to look at Alfie's hand on her shoulder, then looked at the head scientist's mouth. Shada heard herself say, "I'm sure," and a rush of noise flooded her awareness. The low hum of the climate control in the warehouse and the beeping of dozens, if not hundreds, of personal medical devices surrounded Shada's consciousness, and she felt the tug of silence reach out for her. By the time she counted to 10 again, her body stood next to the bed of a woman in her early 20s, wearing a hospital gown. Alfie grabbed the chart from the end of the woman's bed. The edited embryos didn't attach to her uterus, Shada heard Alfie say. Her own eyes stared at the woman's face. Shada realized the point of this exercise was to see if her body would react. Tension in the lower part of the throat, facial muscles contracting, urge to close my eyes, Shada heard herself report. General response, Alfie said. Does it have any effect on your mind? Shada's field of vision shifted from left to right as she shook her head no. Good. Let's continue, Alfie said. They went through the back of the warehouse into a large refrigerator. One wall was filled with small square doors. Alfie opened one and rolled out a cadaver. This one died in childbirth, Alfie said. He paused. Her children will grow up without a mother. The dead woman became blurry. I know edited children don't have the same attachment to parental figures as the unedited do, so this won't matter to her offspring. But it does seem that this body has responded by filling both eyes with tears. Shada watched a hand approach her face to wipe the tears away. And you were able to keep the response separate from your mind, correct? Hollis, in control of Shada, looked across the room with unfocused eyes. No change in my internal state. Given time, I believe I could diminish, if not eliminate, these physiological responses. Shada's head whipped around to look at Alfie. There's no way she's controlling the body without my knowledge, correct? No, sir. Your own consciousness has overridden hers. She's offline for all intents and purposes. Good. I think we've seen enough. We haven't tested the response to torture and death, but I don't think it will be necessary. The pain portion is worth examining. It's a quick test. Hollis and Shada sighed. All right, if it's quick, I want to get some exercise again. Shada tried to scream, but nothing happened. They went to the warehouse's security room, a room filled with camera monitors showing the rows of inanimate bodies, and Alfie borrowed a pistol from one of the massive security guards. He told Shada to back up. Ready? As I'll ever be, Hollis and Shada said. Alfie's head turned sideways, curious, then he shook away whatever thought had occurred to him. He took aim and fired the electrical weapon. When Shada regained her sight, she saw Alfie's face above her own, the stainless steel air ducts on the ceiling in the background. Are you all right? Hollis nodded for Shada. Any adverse effects? Stiff, sluggish limb control, localized pain in the impact site. And your mind? Do you still feel the same? Still able to keep them separate. Alfie smiled, and Shada got the sense his expression was a mirror of her own. This is good. I don't think we have anything to worry about. You should be able to maintain control of your consciousness regardless of circumstance. That's good to know. Let's not do that again. Her own hand reached down and pulled the electric darts from her stomach. Shada agreed with Hollis, even though she never felt a thing. The exercise Hollis wanted to perform turned out to be lifting weights. Alfie stood by as Hollis and Shada chose random machines and tested how heavy a weight the body he occupied could lift. Shada watched herself in the mirror perform exercises she used to be forced to do with her team. She'd never cared about this aspect of being an athlete, and therefore didn't bother to push the limits of what her body could do. So she was surprised when Hollis was able to urge her body to lift more weight than she ever thought possible. Since he could ignore Shada's body's signals about when to stop, he kept pushing past the point of exhaustion. Shada wondered if this weight training session would affect her on the court, but remembered she wouldn't have any meaningful time playing her sport for months to come, so it didn't matter. It became clear of the course of the workout that Hollis used these machines on his own, because every time he lifted more weight inside Shada than he had in his own body, he remarked how frail his own body had become. He pushed weights around for almost an hour before Alfie coughed and told him it was time to get back to the room and switch back. Hollis flexed Shada's biceps in the mirror and smiled, enjoying what he saw. "We have to go," Alfie urged. When the two of them walked back inside the room where the upload took place, Shada saw Hollis's body on the table taking small, even breaths. He could have been asleep. Without his force of personality, he seemed frail, worn out, and cute, the way a grandfather might be. Alfie directed Hollis to lay Shada's body down on the table and placed the helmet on her head. Shada woke up, back in control of her stiff and sore body, and wondered why she felt so alone even though Alfie and Hollis were in the room with her. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, Awakening, Edited Genome Trilogy. Check it out.